right, how's everybody doing? Back on the live. I got Mrs. Success, also known as Cody. I got Hooked Up Joe, also known as Joe, and me, Curtis, and I think Sharif is showing up maybe at some point. We're going to be talking Dolphins versus the AFC East. I'm just really going to do the Jets tonight. It was a long week. Thanks to you guys. I got to say I'm grateful that got on a Dudley Durong show, and it was really good, man. A great time. But the reason I got on was because you guys, so many of you people were saying, get Monkey Man Curtis on. Got me on. So I'm real grateful for everything you guys did. I had a blast. Doug is a great guy, man. I really enjoyed it. Had a good time. So we'll get into whatever questions you guys want to talk about. We'll get into that. I also want to give a shout out somebody who sometimes shows up. Dolphins realtor. His daughter is a young girl, man. She's battling cancer. She went for a test today. They lost the urine sample. Everybody was really praying for it to go well. And they found it, or they got a new one in, like Toot Sweet, and she's like doing good. So it's really great news. I can't imagine what it'd be like to have my daughter going through that. So that's great news on that front, guys. So get into whatever you want to talk about tonight. Cody's got some stuff. Joe's got some stuff. I'll do my thing on the Jets. That's going to be it, man. So how you guys doing? Cody, how you doing tonight there, brother?
Good. Real good. I'm a teacher and it's summer, so I'm living the dream.
You're living La Vida Loca, man.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
What about you, Joe? Joe, what's going on, man?
Not much. Just doing the off season, waiting for the action to kick up in the season. Waiting for training.
So close, isn't it?
We just yearn for training camp this time of year.
Yep.
It's crazy. I can't believe how it's like just about here. Hey, Yuki, what's going on, Yuki? What's the word, man? How you doing tonight? Hold on a second. So what do you think, Joe, man? We're going to go, hey, Cosa Nostra. What's going on? What's going on there, buddy? You know what I mean? What's going on?
Got some cool names there.
So, Joe, what do you think, man? What's your take for the season coming up, man? Like with this division, we're gonna get into it. What do you think? How do you think we're gonna handle this division?
I do think we're gonna split with the Bills, probably. I think we're good enough to split the Bills. You know, the Jets is going to be a wild card because we don't know what Aaron Rodgers is going to do. We don't know how the line's going to. We don't know if their defense is going to continue to be the powerhouse it always has been. You know, they've got a hot seat coach, kind of, and which does kind of amp it up. You're going to expect him to go all out this year because if he fails, he's out with Rodgers.
The dirty laundry. Yeah, it's going to be. I don't know. Can you imagine if? How's that? I don't know. Some doctors showed a video of him and his injured foot. Last year, he was coming off on the toe, but in training camp, in the OTAs, he was flat-footed when he made his drop. So he was saying, I don't know what's going on there. Is this something that's permanent? Has there been some structural change to his drops and his platform? So I don't know. And then he was on the sideline, kind of like taking care of that leg a little bit. So it's hard to say what's what. And then he went off to his retreat for the dead man route or whatever he takes to commune with the universe. So who knows? Who knows, man? If he goes down, they got Tyrod Taylor, so it's not going to be a total disaster if he goes down. But I mean, huge difference between, Aaron Rodgers even at 40 and Tyrod Taylor. So it'll be very interesting. I think it's a huge swing in the AFC and a huge swing in the division, depending on how he's doing. But nobody knows.
Yeah.
What do you think, Cody? Man, what's your take?
Well, I really don't know. Modern medicine's pretty damn good, and Aaron Rodgers he's one of those dudes. He's a generational player, whether you like him or not, whether you enjoyed watching his career or not. He's an amazing player. Patrick Mahomes reminds me of what Aaron Rodgers did for a long time. Aaron Rodgers was a lot more mobile. I mean, if you watch his early years, he was rushing 400, 450 yards a year, and it was all that 3rd and 7, beat you for the first down to kill, just to keep the drives going. So he's a killer. He's a hell of a player. But I feel like the Jets a little bit are a house of cards, and it could go really well. It could go really well. They could be the Hall of Fame quarterback. Everyone believes in it. Defense plays well, or it could just fall apart. And as a Dolphins fan, I'm hoping it falls apart. Sorry, Jets.
Well, that's the thing. That's the thing, man. You don't know what you're getting. It's a total wild card.
Yeah.
Where did Zach Wilson go? Does anyone know? Was it the Rams?
Was it the Broncos, I believe.
Broncos.
Broncos?
Okay,
yeah, with Sean Payton, which is actually a really good landing spot for him.
Yeah,
really
Sean Payton's a genius. I think he's brilliant.
Yeah. He's a jerk, but he's a damn good coach.
That's right, yeah. I was thinking Seattle for some reason. I don't know why.
That was really weird, Wilson, how that ended. They told him they're going to trade him. They benched him. And then they asked him to start later. Like, that was weird.
Yeah, well, the thing is like Wilson, he can't throw on time.
He can do all the off-script stuff. He's the exact opposite of Tua. He really is.
He's like Watson, too. Watson's the same way.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know. I think he has something, but there's something a little wrong with him, man. I don't know. He just simple throws he wouldn't make. I don't know whether he got crushed by the pressure or I don't know. There was something off there, but you could see some talent early. The first season, it was a little bit. It was like rusty and ugly, and I don't know. It was really weird.
He's a Sam Darnold clone, kind of. He reminds me of
100% to win the division. Oh man. Oh man. Well, you know what? Even if they win division, as long as we can get one playoff win, man, I'll at least feel some kind of smiles. If we get one play, like I was even talking to guys before, I said, you know what? Maybe the Bills even win the division. But if we can knock off the Jets and send them to hell, because basically it's hell if they don't achieve anything this year, and we can win one playoff game and show good in the second one, and then we can get ourselves straightened out next year. We got all these picks, and maybe that next year, 25 could be the year for us. I don't think it all has to be this year, but certainly you got to have one playoff win. As the floor, that might not even be enough, but I think, I don't know. What do you guys think? Think one playoff wins enough at this stage, or?
I think it depends on how we win and who we beat. And that's just for the naysayers, how they're going to look at Tua, how they're going to look at this team. If Tua doesn't play well and we blow a team out, all questions are still on the table for Tua, no matter what. If Tua plays really well and we lose, Tua can't get it done. It's a results thing here, and it's really tough to be in that position. So I don't know.
That's the weird thing for me. It's like I think, in my opinion, that this season is more about the philosophies of Greer and McDaniel more than it's even Tua, because you have an absolutely, I say, ambitious, audacious, avant-garde build designed around very low-key talent on the offensive line, high on skills, throwing the football, even though the league's kind of moving to pass balance. And so I think that really that's got to be – no, not yet, Yuki. I think, I'll be scared if Love gets signed and then we don't sign Tua. That's going to be –
That guy's got half a season of numbers. Like, you can see the talent's there, but that's crazy that they want to lock Love up. It was crazy to lock Trevor up.
Yep. Yeah.
So
what do you do though? But so for me, it's like when you go look, I did my numbers crunching and the shaky foundation. I mean, what quarterback thrives with an O-line that you need to be? I don't know, was it second in screens in the league, fourth in play actions, and first in time to throw. And my blockers per pass number I didn't really do yet, but we're top 10 in the league in that. And so it's like, I think if Tua is in position and he can't come through, that's a different story. But if you see this offensive line break down, and a lot of the stuff you saw against good teams was, hey, good evening. What's going on, Scotty? What's up, brother?
Scotty.
It really, to me, if you go look the last couple of years, what's the most outstanding I saw? It's the offensive line, and it sets the table for everything. It's not to absolve Tua, but Yeah, Tua works well in the pocket, but there's no pocket, and that's a scary thing. I don't know. We're going to see how it plays out. I think that we had the talent. I think that the leverage is there, but you've got to judge it, I think, first from Greer's philosophy, and then, okay, the whole rest of the league is surrounding their quarterback talent with pretty decent talent on skills and then heavy talent on the offensive line. So somebody's going a different direction, and that's the road less traveled. So I think that's got to be the one that's evaluated first. And then within the nuance of that, does Tua come through? Does he choke? And you got to really put it all together in context. So I don't know. I know Tua's going to be, no matter what, the easiest thing is to say Tua didn't do it, or he did do it. He's going to have hold in the bag no matter what. So it'll be very interesting. Do you guys think he's going to get signed?
Yeah, I do. I think it'll be soon.
I think they really need to sign him. I mean, you look at the Jags contract, and you look at the available quarterback market, and it's just not there. You can see why the Jags locked up the only thing out there, because what are they going to do? I mean, look at every draft pick since the year Tua was drafted. There's nothing there. I mean, he's like the top of the pack.
Yeah.
Him and what are you going to go? C.J. Stroud, because he had one good year, and that's where we're at with the whole quarterback market. So, they did lock him up for, starting in 2 years and the quarterback rate in 2 years from now, it's actually going to probably end up being a good deal for him if he can pan out. So they're kind of banking on him panning out. And that's the way all the contracts are. They're too risky. We lost half the quarterbacks last year. We were losing literally a starting quarterback every other week last year for the first half of the year at least.
Oh yeah.
And when you're put all your eggs into a basket that has that level of an injury rate, it's just, I don't see how it's sustainable in the whole market of players. You can't spend that much of your salary cap on it. And I can see why they're trying to kind of connect the level of the salary cap to a percentage of what the quarterback can get, because it's just getting supply and demand is a problem.
Well, but the thing is, if that's the case, which I'm totally fine with, why don't you build an off ramp? Why haven't you put another player in here? Or why have you built a system that's so pigeonholed to his particular talents? It doesn't make sense. It's like, we built everything for this kid. You either got to get somebody. I did a whole study on it in my podcast. You either got to get a guy that processes as fast as Brady, or you got to get a guy who releases as quick as Tua. And you're not going to find that. You're definitely not going to find the processing. So it's like, if you go off the speed throw, then you're going to uplift the time to throw, and it's going to put more pressure on an offensive line that's not really functional. So like, why have you not committed to him when you committed to him in the build? So it's a little curious to me. Tua struggled in some big games, man. But so did Hill. Hill dropped some, fumbled for touchdowns, and Tua had a big game against the Chargers. That was a big game that he won. And then the Dallas game, he drove down for the field goal. So I'm not saying he's clutch, but I was looking at Dan Marino. Dan Marino's 8-10 in the postseason. It was Dan Marino wasn't clutch, man. He just had some really bad teams for a while. He was playing some really good teams that were just way better than him. And so I think that, this kid, I show where he fumbled the ball, where he should have known Connor was snapping to the right, and he was already going to the left. And there's definitely some things he's done that are not, I'm like, hey, this guy's my guy, 100%. But I do believe offenses and teams win and lose. And Dan Marino, not many people watched it, but you go look at Dan Marino with Dwight Stevenson, and he's looking like unbelievable. And then Dwight Stevenson gets injured, and he goes totally craps out for like 3 or 4 years. No playoffs, doubles picks, quarterback rating goes down, and all of a sudden they draft Webb Sims, and he's like, boom, back up again. So I think that if you have a pass-heavy offense, you really need a good offensive line. And I think, no team's ever won a Super Bowl without at least a pretty good offensive line. There's no team that's ever won with like a bad offensive line. So I think the kid definitely has things to grow. He's got to prove he can stay healthy. He's got to prove he could be big in the clutch. He's got to prove he's got to expand some of his menu and his ability to control the line of scrimmage. But I don't know, man. To me, if you go and look, you were to like list the worst parts of this team, it's always the offensive line. And so even if we put a different quarterback in, everybody wanted Watson because he was so good. Watson would be gutted on this team. He would be gutted. He'd be running around and destroyed. You know, Brady was screaming and, you know, with 11 pressures in 21, or was it, yeah, 21, and in like 22, he was throwing the ball at 2.12 seconds at 6 yards depth. So I don't know. I'm not saying the guy is the guy. I think his floor is higher than any other player that we've had since Dan Marino. But this offensive line's garbage, man. You know, and I think that's where I always start. You know, so again, I think you got to start with that point first. Build out. You know, we should have went after Lamar. Yeah, but look at Lamar, man. Look, Lamar. He has a real.
What has Lamar done? What has Lamar done? Throw for 3,600 yards?
Yeah, he throws for.
Go look at Marcus Mariota's 2016 season, and you're going to see exactly what Lamar just did. The exact same stats. So I got nothing against Lamar, but I just think, oh, man, if you hate Tua, you're going to find that everywhere you look, you're going to find Tua hate. They're just going to inundate you with it. The things that Tua has struggled with are magnified, and the things he's done well are completely brushed under. And I made a Twitter account finally, and I already realized, dude, all you're doing is arguing with everybody about Tua, man. This isn't very healthy. But we've seen what he can do with time. We've seen what he's done in big games before. We've seen it in college. We've seen Tua deep. We've seen it all. But we haven't seen it enough consistently. We haven't seen it in certain games. But he can do it. It's not a matter of ability with Tua, in my opinion. It's a matter of consistently doing it, and an offensive line sure is going to help. But I just think he's going to get better every single year. And there's this other part about being a quarterback that people don't talk about enough is if you give that dude $55 million, whatever you give him, that dude's going to work his tail off every single day to get better. There's a lot of quarterbacks who don't do that. They work hard, but they sit back on their elite traits that they have, some of their physical gifts. Like Tua's going to get better every single year, and there's enough quarterbacks we've seen go through what he's going through and end up on the other side. But they were doubted all up until that point. Manning couldn't win a playoff game. Like what was Star Wars stats regular season, couldn't win a playoff game. Well, I'd like to pull all those tweets up. Everybody's hating on Manning. Tua can't win in the playoffs. He's played one game in 30 below. Like, give the kid a chance, even if you hate the kid. Give him a fair chance and just try to evaluate him that way, you know? He doesn't fit the mold. No, he doesn't fit the mold, man. But this guy can play. 2022, start looking up his clutch plays. The guy played his tail off in 22. He left that Buffalo game, end of the season, he left the field with the lead. We win that game, the cold, snowy game in Buffalo. Our defense closes it out. You can't say half the narratives you say about him because he would have proved you wrong right there. But since the defense let us down at the end of the game, we can't use that game to show how well Tua played. But I don't know. I believe in the kid, and I know he doesn't run around like Lamar. He doesn't have an arm like Mahomes. But those guys are freaks, man. Those are one of ones, and we got a kid who's going to ball out for us. We just got to build around him the right way.
Well, I think my thing is I think that you don't have anything better than Tua. So you build around him the right way. And if you find somebody better, fine. You know, it's what Walsh did with the 49ers. But look at Burrow. Burrow went to the Super Bowl with a better defense, an elite, unbelievable defense. And his offensive line was garbage, but it was still better than the Dolphins. And Burrow, I think, in the early stages was a better quarterback than Tua because he's able to process better. His father was a head coach. He just had that ability to go through his reads, but he took a beating. He paid for it. His body was ravaged for it. And he was even like knocked out practically in the Super Bowl he played. And so even if like we said, Tua is not our guy, let's go get somebody else, you're going to have to totally change the system because you're not going to get a guy to fit the system we have. You have to rebuild the offensive line. We haven't proven we can do that. And so you're going to have to totally change everything around. And I just don't think any quarterback – I think some quarterbacks, you put Mahomes here, he's going to win more games than two, and he might win as a playoff. He's not going to Super Bowl. Look what happened to him against Brady in the Super Bowl. He had, an okay line. It was still probably around what ours was, a better with both guys going down. And he got lit up like a Christmas tree.
What do you think his time to throw was in that Super Bowl? I'd like to see what his time to throw was. And you go, oh, wait, that was Tua every game.
He was scrambling, dude. He was
scrambling.
So I don't know. So what are you going to do? Okay, so let's say you let Tua go. We haven't proven for how long we can draft a quarterback. So who says we're going to find a quarterback? And what are you going to do in the meantime? And then even we get the quarterback, we haven't proved we could build the offensive line. So I don't know. I think the kid gets a little. I think the kid gets a little too much focus. He's a quarterback, and he's supposed to be a piece of the puzzle. Tampa won with Brad Johnson. Yeah, we can win too if we build right. So if two is a 7 out of 10, then you build the rest of the team to uplift it. One way. I just don't think that. I think that we built so he has to win for us. He has to throw to win, and so either if Greer is saying, "Hey, this guy's got to throw to win," like Marino, then he's got to think he's top 5. You know what I'm saying? Or else you would be like, "Oh no, this guy's not top 5. He's like top 15, top 10. We need a running game." And a balanced approach in order to carry him because he can't carry us. So it just doesn't make any sense that we build for him to carry everything, but then we don't pay for it and we don't build an O-line around him. So I don't know. That's my take.
I think the offensive line, the offensive line was 32nd when McDaniel took over. And we know it takes a long time for the offensive line to gel. I don't think that as a team or as a coaching staff, I think as a coaching staff, we've shown that we can have a fantastic offensive line if Greer would provide the personnel to do so. And we've seen a kind of a shift in how Greer works this year, in that he's always, in my mind, had to go out and find big talent because, frankly, we didn't have the coaching staff to get regular players and make them work. We needed these big powerhouse players in order to give us the chance, in order to try to fit a little window to try to make a run for it. And that making a run for it is something I just don't like that at all. I think the whole idea, like next year, we're already have cap hell next year. The idea to me that we're gonna, even with the picks and all that kind of stuff, I know we always manipulate and everything with the cap, but we're in pretty bad shape. And
we are.
So I don't see like we have this window, like next year is going to be our window. My window is a larger window. My window is we've got McDaniel. Let's try to build Weaver. Let's try to get some cohesiveness. Let's try to build our offensive line through the regular path that everybody has to build. It's not like we can go out and buy an offensive line. If we could, we would have. Yeah. And, we can't. I mean, we got a discount rate guys and we have to rotate. And I think what we got now, getting offensive line players that are younger and if they can stay on the field. I mean, Scotty said this way earlier. He's like, you need to start with healthy players and then get them to do the job. You can't have this musical chair jumping around, different players playing different positions. We've got to get healthy players and then get them to play the position and stay on the field. Easier said than done.
It is, but it also goes back to, look, Greer's got a philosophy, and he's got the opportunity, this philosophy. This team has been built to drive his philosophy. So if his philosophy is correct, we should have success this year. And we should have success next year. Sorry, I'm a little sick. Yeah. So I don't personally like the philosophy. I think there's holes in it. But I also see how it can be the vehicle to drive us to where we want to go. But this next 2 years, if we don't do it, then this philosophy is a bad philosophy because you're not going to replace Hill. You're not going to find another guy like OBJ. You're not going to find another back end Jonnu Smith. You're not going to have Teron Armstead. And you're going to be further on down the line. All the guys are going to get older. Ramsey's going to go, and you have to start filling all these holes. And we're like one of the oldest teams in the NFL. And we totally created this thing to drive this offense through the skills and create this pass defense. The next 2 years, if we don't do it, the philosophy is poor. I just want to, Tua's not Marino. If he was Marino, he would be like, he would have been signed right away. I totally agree. But Greer built around him like he is Marino, which doesn't make sense. So if you're saying that, okay, hey, we got Dan Marino and he wants to throw like the 80s offense, then you build around it like this. But if Tua is not Dan Marino, then why have you made him the prime driver to this team and build around him? It doesn't jive. Like, if you're going to build around him like this, then you pay him and you like, I believe in this guy. Something doesn't strike me as it doesn't jive. It just doesn't jive. I don't think Tua is ever going to be Marino. I think Tua could be a quicker release Breeze with a little bit more mobile skills and maybe not as much pre-snap manipulation. And that's something you can win with. My design for him always would have been a semi-stout offensive line with a running back that can run inside, or an offensive line that can run inside, and as well as outside to a lesser extent. You have a very good tight end. You run your play actions. You have one big receiver, one short receiver. You run your play actions. You get legitimate play action with guys crunching the box and use his release to fit through the window of the play action. Because when you get on the snap, on the center, and you turn your back to the defense, and you put it in the belly of the running back, the ball disappears and everybody stops and goes like this. And that freezes the guys, and then you have pockets where he could use his release. And then you could add in some of this motion stuff. You could add some of this pocket throws, but we're so pigeonholed, and it could change this year. Maybe McDaniel changes things. But there's other vehicles for this kid's talent. His number one talent is the release. There's nobody who releases as quick as this kid. And it's a very powerful tool. My whole life growing up, it was Dan Marino's release. And it was like, then they got to the rest of the stuff. And so what we got here is all based off his release. Yeah, his anticipation and his throwing into windows and stuff like that, and accuracy. But it ain't happening unless he plants and drops and releases. He drops, plants, and releases at that speed. And there's a lot of things you can do with that. But because of our offensive line, we're pigeonholed into a particular formula. And so I don't know.
Yeah, we have a deadly fastball. We have a deadly fastball, but we don't have much of a changeup, and we don't have a curve. But our fastball can beat most on a lot of days. But when it comes down to the top of the league, you can't just hit them with the fastball. And I'm really hoping that Wright and Jonnu and OBJ are that changeup or that curve, whatever analogy you want to use, that second part of our offense that we were missing. And the team you just described that you would like to have Tua play for was San Fran. All those, that play action, the tight end, the receivers, all of that is what McDaniel just left. And that's what he ran, and that's what we thought. That's what I thought we were going to get. So I didn't think we'd go pass heavy at all. I thought we'd be, a grinded out. Pass balance at least, yeah. And I don't know if maybe McDaniel sold Greer so much, like, This kid's it, man. This kid's it. We can build around him X, Y, Z, and we can win some games. And then maybe they reevaluated, like, maybe he can't do it on his own. Maybe but they didn't change the O-line. But what happens, Curtis, if Armstead's healthy last year and Connor's healthy? What does that look like, do you think, though? Like, those two guys play the whole year. What does that look like?
Oh, I think we would have been more successful, but I still think because of the weakness at the RT spot and the left guard spot, we would have not gone any place substantial. I think maybe we could have won a playoff game. Maybe we could have picked up some wins. But that second round, I think, would have been too tough for us because you could survive. You got one guy on the offensive line that you got to protect. You could work with that. But there's no way you're working with Cotton and Jackson. And people tell me, I'm sorry, Jackson. I'm sorry, I could sit down with you. I'd love to sit down with you and just show you stuff.
I think I'd have to see that because I see him getting better every year. But I understand that you look at this a lot closer than I do.
Just look at the true look. You just look at the true pass set grade. true pass get grade the last 7 or 8 weeks of Jackson. He was victimized. Hunt was out. Connor was out. He was a little dinged up, but he had to start carrying more of the load. And his true pass get grade was disastrous. And he really can't drive block. And so, again, if you go with the numbers, we were number 2 in screens, number 4 in play action, number 1 in time to throw. It's the easiest job in the NFL by a long shot. And in 14 years, we had the worst true pass set grade in the NFL 14 years with the easiest job in 14 years. There's no team in the league that has top 5 in all 3 of those categories. And all 3 of those categories are pass mitigating philosophies. So McDaniel fully look, I don't care. There's nobody. Listen, the first thing you do when you go look at tape, the first thing you do is you look at, was the play set up at the line of scrimmage? Was it called correctly? And then did everybody do the assignments? And what was the protection and what was the blocking? And then from that, you begin grading the skills based on that. Like, so if you're calling a 7-step drop and you got a free rusher on you, before you get the plant into the ground, the guy's coming at you and you got to roll out of it and make a move, the coach could be like, oh, dude, I was totally screwed up. That's, you should have done this afterwards. But right off the bat, he's like, the protection wasn't there. Or if a running back, he gets the football and he's supposed to hit the.
Freeze up, Curtis?
Curtis froze there for a minute.
Come on back, Curtis. Is he back? Come on, Curtis.
Yeah.
All right, what you got, Joe? Tell me what you're thinking about this offensive line and where we're going.
I'm thinking that when he ran down the whole list of all the different stats, like the screenplays that we play and the fact that they had the easiest job, I think that they had the easiest job because they have to make up for the fact that they're not that good and they're having to switch positions. And you saw at the beginning of the year, we had a fuller playbook, but as the offensive line keeps breaking down more and more and more, it limits our playbook. We have to run plays that are in the category he was talking about: quick release, screen plays, all the stuff you have to do to make up for an offensive line that's frankly not that good. And that's why I think our offensive line is a little overrated, because they don't really factor in the stuff that Curtis is talking about when they're talking about, like they say, win rate, right? Well, the win rate's not the same if you're running screen pass as it is if you're giving your guy 3 seconds to throw.
Yeah. And I think this is used against Tua a lot. Like, we have to run an offense where we're doing a quick pass, short throws because of Tua's limitations. But the exact opposite, when he has time, where are we going? We're going deep, man. We're throwing the ball all over the place. So I don't understand that narrative, like, Tua has to get rid of it quick. Tua can't throw deep. Tua can't throw the deep ball. They're still saying that. Like, I know he doesn't have a powerful arm, but can we just look at effectiveness and the rate of completions? And I think the offensive line's been holding us back for sure. And I'm really interested to see what it looks like this year and to see if there's a philosophy change in how we attack the run game, how we attack all those screens. I'd like to see our counter, what we're going to do this year. I'm a little nervous for sure because the names aren't there on the O-line that make you feel like, okay, we got a unit. But I'm really interested to see the adjustments that we make on that line and the scheme we run.
We also don't really have the surprise attack that we had. People know what we're doing more. Like last year, we could make up for our learning defense by having a offense that was something people hadn't quite figured out yet. But and it's hard to know whether it's the injuries and the lack of a good offensive line, or whether it was people figuring us out. It's really hard to know what's what, right? Because correlation is not causation, and there's a lot of correlation to be made here because there's so many different factors. So you can look at it and just try to pick one or a varying degree of them all. But all you can do is say what's going to happen next year, and hope our guys can stay in the same position and get some cohesiveness, because I think Curtis is right. Everything does boil down to the offensive line, and I think he's being nice when he says it's a philosophy of Greer to not have a good offensive line and not put money into it, as a way to say Greer's not putting money into the offensive line. He's not putting focus on it. But we spent so much draft capital. I mean, we've spent some draft capital, right? So it's like, did he spend the draft capital and we just didn't have the coaches to develop what he drafted? Kind of like how we're seeing even Eichenberg kind of looking okay, maybe.
Yeah, it's tough because you look at, we paid Armstead, we had first round pick in Jackson, Eichenberg, we traded up to get him, Robert Hunt, who's no longer with us, but we didn't just sign those guys off the street and pay them the vet minimum. We shot our shots. They didn't. Curtis,
we still up.
All right, you made it back.
Buddy. We kept it going.
It's the first time you made it back. I think that's good.
Oh man, sorry guys, there was a power surge over here. I didn't set myself up. I think I short circuited talking about blocking.
Well, we went O-line talk. We did some O-line talk while you're gone. You're gonna have to look that up.
Oh man, let me see. It's gone. Question hustle, guys. Sorry guys, I apologize. Hey, you know what the best part is? I was on the Dudley Do Wrong thing, and his electric went out.
Happens to the best of them.
It wasn't me. I was like, yeah. All right, cool. Question about you, O-line pass guards. Where do you put RPOs? Well, RPO depends. Tua uses RPOs because of the quick release, but it's not really a threat for the run. And RPOs usually take the shape of a play action. And play action, for the most part, for most teams, is just to create pass protection, hesitation, bodies. And so all that stuff, it's nice, but, if you're not getting full guys in routes, it kind of slows things down. If you got a real – and I hope Jalen Wright is able to hit that hole and pick up some yards, because when you run an RPO, look at like Lawrence and Mahomes and Allen, people fear them getting outside and getting to the edge and running. And if you don't have that threat, and Tua doesn't have that threat, and they don't fear the run, then it becomes like people watch the film and they're like, he ain't going nowhere. They ain't running the football. So whatever. Do it. Okay, you do your thing. I'm just going to drop. And one of the keys is to watch what a team believes. Just watch the linebackers. If they're dropping before he even does the RPO or the play action, they already know they don't buy it. That happened to Josh Allen 2 years ago. And I was like a major key. I said, this is ridiculous. And so, RPOs it's a way to help the offensive line out. It's a way to try to create the skies. But if you're not getting that horizontal threat with the running back, and you're not getting the threat with the quarterback and the interior threat with the running back, then, guys watch the film and they're like, okay,
I got a question for you, Curtis.
Yeah.
We sit all offseason and we dissect these teams, right? We talk about our team. We talk about our shortcomings, holes on the roster, things we need to do differently schematically, and we can identify them. I mean, I'm just a fan. I can identify things we need to get better at. You can identify things on a deeper level because you watch a lot of film. Does Mike see all of this?
Of course.
He's got to see all of it, right? And how does he go to Greer? Who does he go to say, okay, we couldn't do this, we couldn't do that. I need these players. Is that an open channel for Mike to say, hey, this is what I need to fix or to go to the next level? Because it seems like he's putting a lot of stock into, Kyle Krabs calls it time on task, because of how deep the scheme can get. We value players like Liam, who are already 2 years marinated into it, and we see that as a value. But how does Mike get to fix these things besides just making his own changes? You know, if I ask that correctly.
Yeah. Well, all I know is, dude, in the 3 years ago when we could have drafted Zach Tom, we drafted Tyndall and EZ. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Okay, so we have Eichenberg. He's on the books for $4 million. So he's going to be the backup center for $4 million.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, you go look at AJ, and you got Morgan Moses. They could have had 3 years ago for $5 million. He outplayed him like lights out. So you paying AJ like $12 million, and he's not worth it. Like, I don't understand it. I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense. You think it's a money thing?
You think it's like we want to spend this money on these talent positions, and we think we can just have an adequate enough line?
Yeah, well, that's the philosophy.
Do what we need to do.
Yeah, that's the philosophy.
That's what he really believes, though? You think Greer really believes that? Or is it just like, shit, I didn't get a good guy. I couldn't find the guys I wanted, and the guys I did invest in aren't what I want, but we got to grow them anyway?
I don't know. To me, it's like, how do you draft Hunt and when you struggled at the position and you could have signed him in 22 for much less? You could have like just give him a little bit more over the top and you would still been ahead. Same thing with Wilkins. You could have got him 22, 23, which would have been a steal. But you're going to go trade picks for Chubb and pay him 24. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Bill Belichick used to trade those guys a year early. Like, he traded Ty Law, and he's still playing really well just because he's like, yeah, I don't want to pay him next year.
I just don't understand. And look, I'm not saying I am right. But the philosophy is you don't really need much of an offensive line. And you're going to throw the football fast, and you're going to make the skills do their thing, and you're going to be ultra finesse. And the dream is you get home field advantage, and you get everybody to come into your house, and you speed them out. And then you speed them out and force them to throw the football, and then you got a heavy pass defense to suffocate them and to blitz them and to overspeed them with your nickels and small looks. And it all works out well. If we're putting the points on, we're driving teams to pass and not stay balanced. It all works if Tehran can stay healthy and some of these other guys can, Yeah. Well, because a lot of people are saying 22 and 23 he would have gone for because the market was was 19 and 20 million, and Dexter Lawrence got 20 million. If they offered him 22, 23, I think that's what everybody was saying he was going to go for. He wasn't going to ask for 25 because that would have been like insane. And he did want to stay. And so the talk was 22, 23. And even if you went to 24, who would you rather have, Wilkins or Chubb? Chubb's had a history of not being available. You had Van Ginkel, who you could have had for 10, and then you had Phillips, and then you could have drafted Chop anyway, and it doesn't make any sense. For me. But Greer can prove it on the field this year. But his belief is you don't have to have interior run game. You're going to play shotgun. You're going to do draws. You're going to run to the edge, and you're going to throw. And maybe that works. It might. I mean, there's so much leverage created, especially – dude, Jonnu Smith really changes things a lot.
I love it, Curtis. I love it.
But I don't know if that's going to translate to ultimate victory because the goal's got to be Super Bowl.
Yeah.
It's got to be Super Bowl or at least conference championship. I could say, you get the conference championship, you have a really good conference championship game. And you know what? I hold my head high. It's the best I've seen since 1990. You know what I'm saying? 92 or whatever it is, 92. But it's got to be more than what we're seeing here, which is, crushing these poor teams, playing, poorly against good teams, beating a few of them, making the playoffs, and then getting drubbed, or a close loss like we did the year before. So, I don't agree with Greer in any way. I think the history of the NFL says it's not the right move, but he has his chance. You're never going to see this kind of talent, this speed and ability to throw the football with a guy who get it out as quick. And I don't understand why we're not doing more 49er principles of like short routes, where the short route combination is that West Coast offense.
Well, we got a tight end now. We have a knockoff. Oh man, I'm drawing a Friday Night Live blank. Who's our tight end over there in San Francisco? We know who he is. I just can't think of his name.
Kittle.
We have our yak
Yeah.
guy. We have a knockoff Kittle, not a blocker like Kittle. Kittle's a beast blocking.
Yeah, he's a great run blocker.
But we have that tight end now to help run that system. So
he doesn't have to block because we don't have an offensive line to allow him to actually play his position the way he should.
Well, I want to talk Sea Devil. Okay, so Sea Devil. You would say Mahomes is the best quarterback or the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks. Let's say, he's top 2 or 3. So they win a Super Bowl with a pretty decent offensive line. Then they go in helter-skelter in the second Super Bowl. It breaks down. And then what do? They trade for they spend big money. They spend draft picks. They got Creed Humphreys. They got what's the guy from the Patriots they spent big. They got Orlando Brown. They went hog wild on the offensive line, and they got Mahomes. All right, you like Allen. Allen, they've really built this offensive lineup. I mean, they've really built it up. They even got La'el Collins as a backup. You look at with Harbaugh, and they've been investing in the offensive line there. You look at the Jets, they're building the offensive line there. You look at the 49ers, and they go a little light. But remember, they had Mack a few years ago. They got Trent Williams as a Hall of Famer who's almost always available.
Stud.
And if you remember, they should have won the Super Bowl last year. But Bruner, the right guard, went out. The backup came in, and then Jones got the pressure on Purdy, and it was a missed touchdown. And so it was that one rotation of your starter, who's your second best offensive line with the backup, that lost you the Super Bowl. And then you couldn't run the football inside in the second half because your offensive line was losing ground because it just wasn't good enough. And so, I think that you need to pay each position group well. You've not got to have one guy or 2 guys on your – you got to have 2 guys and a lot of decent guys on your offense line. You pay a good guard or center and a tackle, and you get yourself a nice receiver, a tight end, and a quarterback. And I think that's where the money's got to go. But if you're just paying all your skills and you got garbage on the offensive line, no one's ever won a Super Bowl like that, ever. There's no garbage offensive line that's ever won. And you got to pay, unless you're drafting really well. Like if you're some of these, Pats find some really good guys cheap. KC finds really good guys cheap. Green Bay finds really good guys cheap, but we don't do that. So, I don't know. We'll see. Maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. Maybe Greer's right. I don't know.
All those places you mentioned are cold weather teams too. Yeah. Probably they witness it every year live in person. We need some bodies when it gets snowy, when it gets cold, when it gets windy. And we're down here in the heat going, no, we're going to boat race you. But you saw what the NFL did to us this year. They're taking away all of our kill them to death heat games at home to start the year. They're giving the Bills a break, giving them a night game in Miami. And the league kind of spoke up about that little advantage we had about just burning the other team at 110 degrees, and we're sitting in the shade on our – They fixed that for us, which I think is BS, man. Like, we need every advantage we can get. Everybody's got an advantage, man. Everyone's got an advantage. They took ours away this year.
Well, sort of.
Good question, Scotty.
Yeah, we sort of. I think he would have, because Alf told me they were trying to trade up into the teens and they couldn't get it, and then they tried to trade up into the end of the first round to get an offensive line. I think they were. I think Greer was trying to fix that. I'm not a big Greer fan, but I think he was. Maybe he would have gone for a different pass rush. I don't know.
I think financially we put ourselves in a position this offseason that was really bad. And the only way really to get a decent lineman, what they have to marinate, but was the draft. That was kind of our shot at getting a good offensive lineman to join our team this offseason without spending money. Because what were we, $60 million over the cap? Is that really the number we were at one point?
I don't remember. It was a lot, though. Yeah, it was a lot.
Sea Devil, yeah, I heard they were looking for the kid who went to Leggett. There's rumors that we were actually trying to trade up to get Leggett.
Yeah, I'm just going by what I was told by Alf.
Yeah, no. Alf probably let's not doubt Alf. That guy's connected. So, yeah, no, it sucks, man. I just want us to win games. And I look at Josh Allen's career, and I was as big as skeptic. For the first 2 years, I said, this guy, he's not accurate. You're not going to win. And whoever was calling Lamar earlier, you're not accurate. You just can't win in the pocket. And Josh Allen just stomped on that narrative. And I live in Wyoming, so I watched him play at college. And Wyoming kind of sucks. Like, they didn't really have a lot of good coaches. Like, he wasn't really – it was a D1 school, but not a high-end D1 school. So I think Josh Allen didn't get any good coaching until he hit Buffalo, and it took a little while. But I watched him play Kansas City a couple years ago in the AFC Championship game, and my God, that was an amazing game. And Josh Allen just kept scoring all the way up till Tyreek Hill had that slant to win the game. But Josh goes down as a loser when that guy played his tail off and could have won that game a couple different drives. We just put so much into the results on these guys instead of looking at growth or situational. We just go, oh, did he win? No, he's a bust. The Bills never win. They're bust. But Josh Allen, he's shown it. And whether you win or lose, man, it's about kind of how you showed up that day. And I've seen Allen show up a lot. So I don't know. Yeah. Happy Hippies here. What's up, Happy Hippie?
Going on, brother? How you doing? I'm supposed to do this whole talk about the AFC East, but I got off.
Oh yeah, where's the Jets? Let's talk about the Jets. And now we don't like them.
I got off. I'm gonna save it. I guess I'll get into it. All right, so let me share this little image. Okay.
I got to turn my light on here. It's getting dark in my room.
All right, so here's the dot. I'm just gonna get into one side of the ball. I'm getting a little tired. Old man is coming in. So if you look at what we got here, Allen is definitely one of the top confusing. Okay, so if you look at our offense, Armstead's a key. If you have Armstead there, all the help could flow down. Wynn is capable, but you don't want him. He's not a good run block, and he can't last long. Brewer can't handle power. They got Jones here. I still think Eichenberg is going to start over him. And you got Jackson. The depth is not bad. Patrick Poole, I don't think is going to be ready. I don't want him to play this year unless it's like cleanup duty, and I don't want any pressure on him. He's such a big piece for us and such a good kid. I just want him to develop properly. Lamb, he's going to be the guy that's going to come in right off the bat, although he's not really too fond of the right side. Driscoll, he can kind of play a little bit, but he's not a good run blocker, but he's a solid guy. You got Liam. Cotton, I don't think, is going to make the team. I think he's going to be a practice squad guy. So the offensive line, if Tehran's there, it could do well. I like Jonnu. I like Durham Smythe in a 2 tight end look. Ingold, you get in there for some nice physical looks. And then you got, obviously, the skills. And the skills are going to be able to test a lot. Jets, I think they're going to be able to match up with us. It's going to be very, very interesting to see. I'll get into their defense. They have some weakness, but they got 2 of the best cover linebackers out there. They've got 3 amazing cornerbacks. And, people say, we light them up. We light them up because they never have an offense, and they're on the field a lot, and they kind of quit. They do have they have a weak psyche. They're a typical bully. And so they're a really good defense. I have all the respect for them, but they kind of, they can kind of fold at some point. So that's good for us, where we can kind of mentally maybe break them if things aren't going away. But I just don't see how if Rodgers around, this offense is going to be anywhere near. It's going to be much better, at least top the end of the top third of the league, something like that. That's going to be a drastic improvement. Now, if you look at our defense, when's Chubb and Phillips coming? We don't know. And Kamara and Robinson, early on, they're going to struggle in the run games. It take them a while. But, the great news is you got Sealer, you got Campbell, who could play that 5 technique, 3 technique. Yes. Played it. He could play. But, and then you got Barrett as well, which I like. And then, but that 0, who's playing the 0? Now, I went back and looked at the Ravens. Last year, we played the 0 200 times. Davis played it for us 173, and then Wilkins played 30, that 0, the 0-to-1 technique, the A-gap, managing the A-gap. But the Ravens, who were mimicking, they ran it 300 times. And
Wow.
150 of those was Pierce, who's the best A-gap defender, or top 2, but I'd say probably best in the league.
Power
And
pig.
so you got Jones behind him to play that A-gap as well. So you got somebody who's able to manage the A-gap. Now, I don't know if we're going to be playing 2-gap. I think we're playing 1-gap, which means you're shooting those gaps. And so when I look at our DTs, you can see Tia Tart. I don't know. I'm not certain I feel him. He came in out of shape. He struggled.
That's a red flag. I'm feeling red flags about the guy right now.
And he's small. He's a pass rusher. He had one good year with Simmons. Isaiah Mack, I'm not really putting too much on. Maybe, I don't know. Deshaun Hand, I like, but he's a little small, and he only had 200 reps. Jonathan Harris is a pass rusher. I could see him, being a body, but is he going to manage it as well as Pierce for half that time? Is Weaver going to change the way things look? Are we going to be running less A-gap manning? Or are we going to blitz to support that A-gap? I don't know. I don't know what we're going to be doing. Benito Jones, big, but his run grades are not good. He gets moved. He just doesn't have the shoot. He's big, and he can kind of hold stuff. But Neville Gallimore, another guy, he's just a pass rusher. Good, Cameron Good, he's an edge guy. Now, the guy that I'm really excited about is Peely, because if you're running a 1-gap, and he's not being asked to play 2-gap responsibilities. I saw last year the Ravens, when they played, I think it was Allen, and it was mobile quarterbacks, they played a lot more 2-gap. They weren't shooting the way. So if that's going to translate over, and they want more 2-gap assignments, occupying 2 guys, 2 gaps, then that means those responsibilities come to our team. And how's that going to play out? I don't really like our 2 gaps that way. But maybe Weaver does.
Is the difference between running 2 gaps and shooting based on you have a guy who can power those 2 gaps versus a guy who's athletic and quick who can get up? Okay.
Yeah, you're basically trying to man 2 gaps. Your job is to hold and shield. We ran both 1-gap and 2-gap. 1-gap is just you shooting through. You're attacking a hole, and we ran that too. Sometimes we have one guy do 2-gap and another guy do 1-gap. I don't know what what Weaver's desires to do. I don't like Sealer in that 1-gap on even downs, so it's a run or a pass down. But I do like Peely. Peely's a guy that I'm very intrigued to see because he's got the speed and the size to shoot. And, you could do different things to compensate. You could blitz to compensate. You can work things differently. Like Campbell, he could play 2-gap. You could have him play 2-gap, maybe the rest of the guys. I don't know what the techniques are going to call, but that's the weakest point for our defense is that A-gap. And A-gap played a major part with the Ravens. And then behind us, I like Alf really likes Jordan Brooks. I'm not sure. I'm still debating because I'm looking at the Seahawks, and they ran 2-gap, which means the linebackers were getting shielded, and then he was picking and finding. Now, if we're running 1-gap, he's going to have to deal with the blockers and get off them. I don't know. It could make him better. It could make him worse. I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out.
What were we running in the early 2000s when Zach had all that success? What were we running up front with Bo? Was that just a 2-gap?
That was 2-gap, yeah. Yeah, Bowens and Gardner just occupied. They kept Zach clean all day,
Yeah.
But Brooks is big, dude. He's 6 feet tall, like 240 or something.
Good athlete.
And he's got some really good leverage. And I'm really interested to see. I got to go back and do the studies. I just really haven't focused on that. I'm going to try to get to that soon. But you're going to need that Mike to roll through and to be able to handle blockers, handle pass coverage, which I think he could do, and he could blitz really well. So we'll see. Long is really good, but he was kind of like he had a lot of 2-gap in front of him, and so he was kind of kept clean. He's a little small, so I don't know how he's going to do on 1-gap and getting off. It's going to be very interesting to see. But yeah, Peely's a guy that I'm hoping for because if you get him and he could just step up a little bit from last year and make this squad and get 200 to 300 reps and have some success, then you've got a UDFA at one of the hardest positions to find. And this guy could then be a big figure for you next year. And that takes a huge financial burden off you. So I got to see what we do with this A-gap thing and what the look they're going to create. because you go back, you look at the Ravens, and they would just man Pierce right in the middle. And they would Madden Jones right in the middle. Or they put Jones and Pierce next to each other. And that was like 700 and almost 800 pounds of people, So I don't know. I'm interested to see that. So I think that's the only real weakness. And, our secondary is going to be fine. Our corners, if Ramsey stays healthy. I'm interested to see about, people talk about Cam Smith. He's got to step up. And, it should be a concern that you spend a second-round pick on a guy and then you bring Fuller in. A second-round pick is somebody you're expecting to start. So this guy – it's okay. He plays a smaller duty, but it's got to be impact. He's got to have a real impact because Tyndall's sitting, EZ's sitting. We lost Noah. You got to get something substantial from this guy. So it'll be very interesting to see. They got him listed as a safety. Is he safety corner? Is he a nickel rover? I don't know. It's interesting. I think the kid's got talent.
Yeah.
Heard last week that Alf said he didn't think Kohu was going to make it, which kind of hurts, but I understand it. So, and Needham, he hasn't played in a couple of years. So it's, the secondary looks pretty good, but an injury might start shaking this thing a little bit. So I like what I see. If Cam can step up, if Needham can step up, and Poyer can stay healthy and Ramsey can stay healthy, I like what we got. So really it's the main thing is these edges. Barrett only had, I forgot how many reps last year, but not a ton. Campbell had like 700, but 450 was in pass rush. And your body gets way beat up more in rundowns. And he's going to have to probably play more rundowns until Chubb and Phillips come back. So there's so many variables to really get into it. The yellow graphic I got will be.
I screenshot those right away every time you throw them up, by the way.
I hope they're worth it. Okay, so here's the Jets. So the Jets are sort of in a little bit of an – I got this thing up there. I forgot to put it down. Now, Tyron is like Tyron Jr. Is he going to stay healthy? They got the young kid, but he needs work. If he comes in, I think he's in a better spot than Paul to just step in here. He's more user ready, but he's not ready yet. So Tyron Smith needs to stay healthy for most of the year. Morgan Moses is a beast. We should have signed him for pennies. This guy can run block, and you got Breece Hall behind him. That's going to be something very concerned early with our edges. But I like the fact that he can man Campbell up on him. Veritaka, he's injured every year. If he's healthy, he's unbelievable. Titman, Alf likes Simpson, 330 pounds. Good offensive line, but a little helter-skelter. That breaks down. This whole team's going to go straight to hell. It's just there's no way around it. I like that they got some guys in there. They got some guys they drafted last. He was tackled pretty poor. You would have to take a big step up. So they're in a very precarious position. I like what they got at the receiving group, but Williams is going to come in a little banged up. They're going to have a tough opening schedule. I like the tight end group there. Breece Hall I like. I didn't like getting rid of Carter. I like Carter, but he was banged up. But then again, for them, you look at their defense. They got an unbelievable defense. But that DN spot, that red circle, how's that going to play out? Solomon Thomas, Fatu, and Kinlaw, none of those guys are really good. Yeah, you can, just like on an offensive line, you can hide one guy. And so when you got Williams and the rest of this team, you can hide them. But that could be but are we going to be able to expose that interior stuff? Hopefully with the cutback and the draws. But is Eichenberg, is Brewer going to be able to victimize that spot? And then there's a safety spot. I like Adams. I think he's pretty solid. But if they're going to be playing man, and they're going to have to play man, they have to play press, probably two cover high safeties and man underneath. But that safety spot to me has been really managed out. And so when we match up against them, it could be good, it could be bad. It's going to really come down to the two offensive lines of both teams. I think depth and health is going to play a major role, man. I think the Bills have the most depth on the offensive line, but us and Jets aren't so hot. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. I think they can put some sticks on us, man, if they're able to put themselves in a nice coverage position.
Cardass, don't you leave again, bud. Yeah, Curtis got kicked off. Joe, you still on here? Yeah. Well, I look at the Jets and just think they're top heavy in terms of their offensive line and of course their quarterback. And if anything happens to Rodgers, it's over. And you can say that probably about a lot of teams, that if they lose their starting franchise quarterback, that it's over. But it looks like we already saw it with the Jets once. So I'm just hoping our defensive pass, Kyle Krabs made a really interesting video about what keeps happening to Miami at the end of these years and on the road. The real biggest letdown we keep having is the pass defense. And the splits are night and day, and they're horrible. And we want to give it to Tua. We want to say, oh, Tua's choking in these big games, 72. If you're on here, I know you're frustrated with Tua. Take a look at the pass defense in those games and what kind of collapses we've had, whatever you want to attribute that to. And we revamped our secondary. We revamped our corners. X hasn't been there in the games we need him to. He hasn't been healthy enough. Cam Smith never even got to play. We changed safeties. We still have Javon Holland. I think there's a lot of other issues why at the end of the year we collapse. And we love to say Tua can't play in cold weather. We love to say he can't win big games. The Dolphins haven't won big games. The Dolphins haven't been able to close out close games at the end of the year. They haven't been able to play in bad weather. It's not a Tua thing alone. It's an entire organization. I've been a fan since, I'm a lot younger than a lot of you guys on here. I'm 39, but I've been watching since 98, just obsessively. And we lose at the end of the year in a lot of cold games. And recently it's been really bad, but we want to blame Tua. We don't want to entire team. Yes, Curtis, thanks, man. I took the opportunity to stick up for Tua and explain how our pass defense has let us down, and winning cold games at the end of the year is a Dolphins problem that just has been around for a long time. It's not new. So welcome back. I hope you're not frozen there, buddy. Guys, if you're wondering, I got this shirt from Alf, 3 yards per carry. He's got a little Printify shop, $19 plus shipping and handling. You don't get shirts that cheap anymore. Nice quality. Alf, if you see this and you want to send me anything else, go ahead and put her on there and I'll talk her up. But man, nobody gives me a platform to just sit here and talk. Somebody give me a question or something, man. Let's see here. Sea Devil says Dolphins had too many holes to beat better teams. Yeah, we certainly did. We had a lot of holes. I'd love to rewind it and have an offensive line that stayed healthy. I know Curtis said probably wasn't going to get us where we want to go, but it would have been it was already a giant improvement last year. Our offensive line was a giant improvement. We've been in the shit dumpster of offensive line for years there. Adam Gase didn't do anything. Flores didn't fix it. And we've seen improvement under McDaniel, and maybe it's just scheme. I don't know. But I think continuity and health, and we can really do something. And I'm a homer. Yeah, I know. But the things that held us back last year were having our horses at the most important time. And I wish we would end up playing the Steelers instead of going to Kansas City and freezing it out there. I kind of felt like we were going to lose that game as soon as we got there. So, yeah, I really hope Curtis comes back on here because I'm sure you guys didn't come here to listen to me talk about the Miami Dolphins. But while I'm here, I guess I'm just going to take a little time to talk about Tua, and hopefully I don't upset anybody. I look at his hip injury coming out of college as a huge, tilting point for the way people started viewing Tua. Left arm of God, healthy. Yeah, I'm just talking about Tua, Curtis. You leave me alone, I'm going to talk about Tua, man.
I'm paying you.
Yeah. No, I was just talking about that hip injury. I think that was the giant thing that really changed the way we view Tua and the way his career kind of kicked off. Everyone expected this left arm of God, this kid who's going to come in and save the Dolphins, and we got a skinny, beat-up version of the Alabama Tua. And he looked slow. He looked small. He didn't look slow, but he looked small. He looked like his arm was weak. and they thought, who the hell is this guy? Why is this guy here? He's not who we thought he was going to be, and he's been behind the 8 ball with coaches, health, everything for a while.
Who decided to put him in the first year? Everybody thought he was going to be redshirted. It was like a given.
We were 3-3. Fitzpatrick just came off the field, said, "Here you go, Rook. Play one little possession here at the end of this game," and then we switch. Yeah, it's the Dolphins do some head scratching stuff. We can all agree on that.
Yep. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's a long thing, man. Guys, I'm sorry about it. I live in the mountains, and I got all these things I'm supposed to set up, but I haven't had any problems with my electric in so long. I was like, I don't know if I can set it up. It'll be all right. It'll be good.
It's meant to be, Curtis.
Anyway, Cody, you're the best, brother. I appreciate you. You guys, Joe, I appreciate it too, brother. Guys, I appreciate everything. I'm thankful. Like I said, you guys got on Dudley Do Wrongs and said put the monkey on, and he got me on because of you guys. I appreciate all you do, man. I love to do this gig. I love guys like Cody. Any guys want to come on, just email me. I appreciate it. It means a lot. All you guys do. I appreciate the comments of the guys. So I guess before I lose my electric again, my daughter's just telling me she found a cricket this big in her house, and she's desperate to show me. So I think it's the signs of the times for me to go. I'll get my electric back up and better internet next time, guys. I appreciate everything you do. I had notes, but I'll get to them next week, guys. Thank you so much. Hasta la vista.
Fins up. Thanks, Curtis.